Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles.
Good evening. I have, as you can hear, some form of laryngitis. So I will try to use my, I'm not sure that these lozenges are helping. I got a glass of water, but I'll have to do a lot of talking, but I want you to do a lot of talking too. Okay? Because that's how this thing works. So welcome to Psalms. It's a wonderful world, the world of Psalms. Yes, indeed. And we are going to read through the listing that you got that is listed on the announcement. So I want to mention a couple things. So if you don't know Hebrew well, don't worry, because we do a lot of English reading. I will use Hebrew when I need to use the words to help you understand sounds, or when we look at some nuances in the Hebrew that require analysis because it affects the meaning of the English or how we understand it. But don't worry, you will be fine. We do not go fast. I mean, and honestly, there's no guarantee that we will finish the list. I mean, we don't have to. You don't get a transcript for this. You don't need it for your college education. This is what you call Torah Lishma. You're learning it for the sake of learning, which is really the best thing. Anyway, all right. You should have always your Bible, okay? Not a Chumash. There are only so many Psalms. There are no. There are poems in the Torah that are Psalms, but they're not. We need the book of Psalms. That's in the Bible. So make sure you have a good, preferably a Jewish Bible, okay? Because they are the most commonly, easily accessible one is the new JPS, which came out in the 80s, and it's decent. I also recommend, if you wish, my colleague and as a rabbi and friend, a Bible scholar in Israel, has published a book. He published it a few years ago called A New Psalm. His name is Benjamin Segal, Segal, Segal. Okay? And you can get the book, A New Psalm. It's only about 600 pages long. You can get it online, on Amazon, if you have Kindle. I don't know if it's in any other electronic version. But I have it. I have the hard copy, but I also have it on my computer, so I can transfer things into my when I use it more easily. But it's a terrific book, and I'm using him as a primary commentary because it's very all-encompassing. He uses modern and classical stuff. And basically, he uses it's close to my understanding of how to read the Bible, which is, do you understand the words clearly so you can really get a message as to what the author is talking about? And then once you understand that, we can talk about what's the meaning for us, okay? But my point always is, before we can do Midrash and make make Bible meaningful and helpful for us in the 21st century, you got to understand what it's saying. But in unlocking this, the beauty of it has been for me, because I've studied Psalms randomly in the past, but not systematically. And what it has done for me is just to open up the whole notion of understanding the Psalms as amazing literature. Okay, powerful literature, and the psalmists are poets, yes, but they're in a certain sense linguists, and they are structuralists. They use all kinds of different literary techniques to get their words across. And as you'll see in the psalm we're going to read tonight, many of these psalms deal with powerful emotions, strong feelings.
Chapeau.
And you'll see somebody's got is talking, and you didn't mute, so please be careful, okay? If you're going to talk, mute and then unmute. Thank you. Anyway, so the messages in these psalms are unbelievable, And in a certain sense, if you can appreciate from the perspective of the poet what he's writing, then you can understand the issues and the feelings that existed 2,000, or let's say 2,500 to 3,000 years ago, and realize that they're human beings just like us. And those things that bother them bother us, or those things that make them happy make us happy. And that's without it. You'll see in this particular psalm we're going to read today, the guy is really suffering, and he doesn't pull punches about it. He's got a huge dilemma. Okay, so that's how we're going to read it. We always want us, people to comment. What does it evoke in you? That's perfectly kosher. But let's first understand it. It could be a whatever, and it's open. Leave unless you're expecting phone calls, unless your dog is going to bark, which he won't. I know he's quiet. Make sure that you stay unmuted. Raise your hand either physically or by using the icon down below. The electronic hand. Just watch which fingers you stick up. Okay, be careful. Anyway, okay. All right.
Okay.
You'll have to suffer with my weird sense of humor. For that, I don't apologize at all. And now let's get started. All right. Okay. Any questions, comments, etc.?
Which psalm are we working on?
All right. Today it's Psalm 42, 43. All right. That, by the way, if you look at the announcements for the two classes, for this class and if you're in the one tomorrow, all of the readings are laid out. All right, in detailed fashion. So you'll know what you're expected to read for each class. Okay? All right. Tybal, wait a second. Can you hold it?
I was just going to say I love your sense of humor. That's all.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Okay. So let me begin. In a moment, I want to read some of the beginning words in Rabbi Siegel's introduction, but I want to make an observation here. The author of this psalm is God obsessed, literally obsessed with God. And that's his problem, as you will see, because he feels as if he's not being reciprocated. Okay? And I think you'll see that as it emerges. Why do I say God obsessed? The word El, Elohim, Eloha, all those different forms that we use for capital G-O-D, as opposed to Yud-He, Vav-He, which we would call Hashem, Adonai, whatever. Okay, I like to breathe in it Y-H-V-H because it's more, I don't know. We don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, that's the God's personal name. But the 21 times in this psalm, he uses that word El, Elohim. One time, 4 times in one verse. Okay. And it's so obvious, but sometimes you read them over, you don't count. I happen to be what I call a bean counter. I count words, because when you count words, you get a sense of what's on the poet or author's mind. And when a lot of words are repeated, unless he's citing, technical terms that others have cited. But in terms of if it's his own creative expressions, the words talk to something that speak to the author. So that's why you got to look at them. And you see the nuances of the meaning of the words as well. Okay, so that's one thing. But here's an interesting thing. 21 times El, Eloah, Elohim, Yud-He, Vav-He, once. Interesting, okay? Not sure what it means. I have a theory. I'll talk about it later. I have an idea about it, and I think I can explain it. Okay? All right. So here we go. So Rabbi Siegel begins his introduction. Yes, those of you who are continuing from the last semester in this class, there's some repetition here, but you'll pardon me. Okay. So here's what he says. Far from the temple, God's devotee yearn. From the opening of Psalm 42-43, the poet, through powerful images that alternate with repeated phrases, starkly depicts the speaker's anguish. So sharp are the images and the situation that the poem is easily both read literally and metaphorically, the physical distance reflecting a spiritual. It is here that we first encounter a psalm associated with the Korahites, one of the groups of Levitical singers. So these are the Bnei Korah. And it's interesting. Why, think about who is Korah? Well, we just read about him, didn't we? Or we will, right? This week. Yes, I think I'm right. Yeah, because that's who cuts afterwards. That's right.
July 5th or 6th.
Thank you. That's not this week. No. Right. Okay. Right, because I'm the following. I'm the Gabbai. I'm Gabbai the following week. So I know. All right. Anyway, so the Korahites are mentioned, Bnei Korach, Psalms 42 to 49. And those of you who were with us a few months ago, we read 49. Remember, that's the one with the I never saw a hearse followed by a Brinks truck one, right? Remember? Okay. All right. So there's 42 to 49, 84 and 85, 87 and 88. So those are they. What's with this thing with Bnei Korach? Wasn't his family destroyed? Remember where Korach is mentioned? Okay. I think I have an answer from Vered Hoppenstein.
I believe we read in Sefer Bamidbar that it says, Uvnei Korach lo metu.
Nachon.
So, and they became Leviim serving in...
Right. Thank you. See? By the way, got to watch out for Vered. She's very smart. It's a blessing. No, seriously. She brings a whole added dimension, her knowledge of Hebrew and text. So she's very helpful to the class, and we appreciate that. Anyway, yeah, it's Numbers 26:11. There's like a genealogy of Levitical families, and you would have expected that when Korach was killed, along with the other 250 people, Levitical people who rebelled against Moses and Aaron, primarily against Aaron, they were eaten up by fire. God's fire came down and just zapped them. Okay, Korach died, but for some reason his sons, according to the biblical tradition, continued to exist. And so these psalmists were probably Levites who, in their family tradition, trace themselves back to Korach's family. But these are hardly heretics, I must say, and the commentary that Rabbi Siegel develops, in a few, I'll just paraphrase him now. The commentary he makes the point of that their ability to express very powerful feeling is quite unique to them. And you're going to see that in this poem. And you'll see here the commitment to God. You'd expect a Levitical family to have a strong commitment because they were the ones who worked in the temple. But the fact is that these poets sometimes are just powerfully imbued. And we don't know who they were. We do not know their names. They speak often of sometimes using musical instruments, which they probably did because from what we understand, the Levites they actually formed choirs who would chant accompanied by musical instruments while the officiating priests would deal with the sacrifices. So, we don't know that we have no knowledge of priestly blessings or words that they said, in terms of the temple cult. We just don't know. But we have plenty that talk about, that refer to the music. The best one, if you want to know what did the Levitical orchestra, what was it comprised? Where do you find it? Where can you find the instruments for the Levitical orchestra? Where? Yes, Rabbi, unmute.
Try now. Psalm 150.
Psalm 150, correct. Right? Exactly. Okay.
Just to add that another place you can find them in Jerusalem, there's a wonderful museum of Hebrew music. Oh. And you can put on headphones and hear what all the instruments sound like. And they have a mock-up of the temple. Very nice. Very good. Yes. So there you have it. Okay. So that's these guys and powerful stuff. Okay. Now, so let's plunge right in. Any other questions, comments, observations? Okay. So here we go. Lamatseach maskil livnei Korach. Okay. I'm going to use I have in front of me the JPS translation and Benji Siegel's translation. In fact, actually, I prefer Benji Siegel's,
because I think it's more accurate. Sometimes the JPS tries to sort of interpret and give us a sense of the broader feeling, but I would rather we work with the most basic meaning of the word so we can find the feeling by ourselves. Oh, so here it is. But here they both agree. All right, Lam Natseach, who's the Natseach? That's the leader, right? The leader of the choir, probably maybe of the orchestra too, that I don't know. So it's a maskil. What is a maskil? Guess what?
Family member?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. All right, Jared, you're going to take it. You're going to give it a stab. Go ahead.
I learned that la menatzeach means actually the conductor.
That's right.
Or the leader, like you said.
Yeah.
And the word maskil comes from the word sechel, which means that from the following Tehillim, from the following Mizmor, we are going to learn something.
Right.
It's something that is going to teach us.
That is one interpretation. You're right. Yes. So here's the listing that I pulled out of the dictionary. It has something to do with some intellectual text or erudite, a cult song, a wisdom song with music, as Vered suggested, an insightful song. Okay, so it all has to do with it. The common denominator is something that deals with, higher knowledge, higher understanding. But exactly what it means, we don't know for sure. Yes, Rabbi.
I just wanted to mention that I'm using Rabbi Richard Levy's translation, and he says specifically the conductor.
Yeah. Oh, it is the conductor. Everybody, that they know, that we know. There's no, that's not in question. The word is maskil. What is a maskil? Because sometimes, here, in point of fact, this is not a psalm that sounds like it's filled with what we would call wisdom traditions that tell you, give you strong advice. We read other psalms that clearly did, that talked about you should fear God because you should remember. We did Psalm 34, tells you matov, where you find the basis for not using lashon hara. Right, that's the psalm that talks about Netzor lashon chamera usfatecha medaber mirmar. Guard yourself from speaking evil, etc. That psalm, right? That's wisdom type literature, but it's not. To the best of my understanding, it's not called a maskil. That's the point. So that's why people are confused. But indeed, the psalms in many ways are considered wisdom tradition because they are filled with statements, feelings that don't fall under the rubric of other elements of biblical literature. Okay, so that's it. So this is a maskil lifnei Korach for the Korachites, or from the Korachites. Here we go. Now, ke'ayal ta'arog al alfike mayim. Okay, like an ayal, and longs for, pants for, craves. The verb is ayin reish gimel. It is only found 3 times in the Bible. 3 times. Twice here in this one verse and once in Psalm 38. So this guy uses some words that are very, very, shall we say, highfalutin or rarely used. Okay, this is an example of that. Okay, what's an ayal?
A deer? Is it a deer?
Yes, it's a form of deer, right? Is that a male or female sounding word?
Male sounding.
It's what?
Male sounding.
Yes, you would think of a female would be ayelet, something like that.
Ayala.
Or ayala, right? Yeah, ayelet would be the smichut, right? Ayala would be the basic, yes. All right. And then it says afterwards, ta'arog, which is feminine. So why is it you have a masculine form of the name of the animal followed by a feminine verb? Isn't that an interesting question? All right.
Perhaps he meant ayala.
No, it could be. Some people actually say it might be that, but then it would. But there's nothing that indicates that it was once there. Some put a top after it, ayelet.
Well, when we say deer, it does. You're not implying male or female.
Yeah, but this is Hebrew.
I know, but it's like maybe it's the same kind of thing as like
close.
a word in English. That's
yes. What many people suggest is they're talking here about the genre of animal, the general, what you said, a deer, not
unisex.
They're not differentiating in the first word between male and female, but from the second word we know that it is a female.
Female.
Yeah. So that's why it's often translated, excuse me, as a hind, which is a female deer. Now, in the meantime, some of you know, if you've taken classes, but I like to show pictures. So here we actually know, or at least strongly suggested, is the ayal. This is a male. It's called a fallow deer. I have no idea what that means. All right, but there it is. I want you to meet the ayal. And of course, the ayala would not have the horns like that. Okay, there it is. It's a real animal. Okay? All right, in case you had any doubts. Okay, so now, but let's get back to the point.
Rabbi?
Yes, sorry. Yes, Tybal, I saw your hand.
Two things. There was just recent archaeology news about the importance of fallow deer herds. It's a kind of when human beings moved from one age to the other, from starting to become hunters. There was something about how tool implements changed, and some things was just found in Israel about tool implements and fallow deer. So that's a certain deer that's historic. I'll later send you the archaeology article that I saw. That's one.
Fascinating.
And the other, though, it's probably anachronistic. Could it be that for the universality of this emotion, the psalmist deliberately mixed genders to be more inclusive, or that's anachronistic? That's a modern sensibility that would not have applied that time ago.
You know, it could be. It's no more anachronistic than saying that it gives a general category than goes specific. Okay, I don't know. I can't answer. That's it. I would suggest it's a very interesting suggestion. By the way, you see the level of how we talk in this class. So is any serious, suggestion that you may have, don't hesitate to suggest, okay? And especially if you've got some background, this is terrific, all right? And, and I will try not, if I think you're totally off the wall, I won't say that, okay? All right? But sometimes, look, I can be off the wall too, right? But of course, I'm the rabbi, so no, never mind. Okay, all right, so here, but now let's get serious, okay? So as the ayal ta'arog, and it's that word, it seems craving is the best thing. Al apike mayim. So apike mayim. So kain nafshi ta'arog elecha Elohim. Right. So here we have the first Elohim. So as a fallow deer craves water on a water course, afek mayim. Right, afek mayim. So my soul craves you, God. Okay. Now, what can we say about a water course in afek mayim? What kind of a body of water is that?
Well, the Siegel says it's arroyos or wadis.
Yes, that's close, right? In other words, it's not a lake, it's not an ocean, right? Not a sea, a body of water that stays there. This is a body of water that comes and goes, right? You think of a wadi, right? It's a water course, because during most of the year they're dry, and it's only in the rainy season that they fill up.
Isn't this the same shorish as the word afek, like a horizon, something that's distant?
I don't know if there's a connection.
Okay.
I don't know. Barrett, can you answer? Do you know? Is afike, related to a horizon? Is it that they are both flat? I don't know. I didn't. Good question. You want to look it up? No, seriously.
No, I'm saying that it could be.
Yeah.
But those are nouns, and nouns not always come from a shorish. So ofek is a horizon, and afik is a stream of water.
Yes, that's right. So, you don't know. I don't know. But sometimes if they do find, I see your hand just a second. Sometimes if they there's a word we're going to come up with, which is called a primal noun, which mean it's a noun that's not based on a verb. So you have these primal nouns that just exist and have roots very often there are Semitic roots that they just borrow, because Hebrew, as we now know, from the huge amount of information about Semitic languages that the information that has become available, they can talk about 4 and 5 different kinds of roots from different variants within other Semitic languages. So it's that are older than Hebrew was. So it's difficult to know for sure. Noah.
So do you think this is a thirst for God because he uses the word smea nafshi later, like in the desert? Because that's where we have Ayalim in Israel, Bamidbar Yehuda, and that's where we have Afikei Mayim. And I do think that those Ayalim goes back, from the Masada scrolls and so forth, because it's not a really typical animal for Israel. So I'm wondering whether the kind of context is of a desert.
Exactly. No, they are. And you're going to see in a moment later on how this is contrasted. Okay. Keep the water concept in your heads. So here, this is a deer who craves water, right, is clearly not a deer who lives in an area where there's a lot of water, because you always can go to the lake, right? I mean, my daughter lives out north of Denver in the foothills of the Rockies at 7,700 feet. Okay, they have elk in the backyard all the time. The elk are big, fat, strong, and they don't crave water. They got plenty, okay? So, but the Afek Mayim is the key, because there are times during the year when it can be bone dry. And so you want to think of the deer by this, looking for whatever remnants of water exist in the wadi. They're looking for that. So that's definitely desert, yes. And now you get the image.
Right, but the word deer is sort of misleading, right? Because ayal in Hebrew, it's a form of a deer, I suppose, from the same family, but they don't look like these very cute.
Well, this is a
animal.
This is a fallow deer. They exist in Israel.
Yeah. So it's just I'm saying that even using fallow, it's the animal that when you see it, it doesn't really look like a deer. It just belongs to that family.
Yeah, whatever. Anyhow, the point is though that but you get the image, right? Yeah. It's an animal that is thirsting, having difficulty finding water. And that's his soul in relationship to God. And as I said, this is a guy obsessed with God, right? So you'd expect that a guy who's got God on his mind and in his soul all the time would be very responsive. But that's a tragedy, the poem. It's laid out right there in that one verse. Okay, that's a huge issue. Okay, so it goes on now. Sam'an nafshi Elohim. L'el chai, matayavo, be'ere, nei Elohim. Okay, my soul thirsts. Well, here he says it, right? For God, for Elohim. L'el chai, right? To the living deity. Okay, now look at this verse. Matayavo be'ere panai, be'era panai. No.
Yeah.
No, pnei Elohim.
Pnei
Elohim. Be'era. I will be seen by the face of God. I will be seen. There's a comment, one second, one of the commentators suggests that it may originally have been Be'era, I will see the face of God, which means one could actually get close and see God, okay? That's not something that the Bible wants to encourage, but there are instances where God is seen. The best example of it is when the 70 elders are with Moses on Mount Sinai, having their covenant meal with God, and they see God, and it says, and they didn't die. So there is a notion in the early traditions in the Bible that you could actually see God, or see that something that, is more than just a fire or smoke, some image that is the essence of God. But later on, because it was too pagan-like, when monotheism began to become purified over the centuries, later sources, later writers may have changed it so that it is the I am seen by the God's presence. Okay? But the way it is now, yes, it's in the Nepal. I am seen. Yes? Got it? So that's what that means. But again, Pnei Elohim, right? Ya'er Adonai panav elecha. May God turn his face unto you, right? Or it has his face shine upon you. Panim, the face of God. Now, what does God tell Moses when he's on Sinai? He says, no person can see my face, so you get to see my back. You're not supposed to see the face. It's too powerful. It'll kill you, okay? But here, he's using it, right? The point is, what he's saying here is, so the translators use the word presence. I want to be in the presence of God. I want to be seen by the presence of God. I don't care whether he sees me or not. I don't care if I see. I want to be seen by the presence of God. Okay, Vera.
Reading those 3 psukim so far, I understand it that the author of this Tehillim is not yearning or craving to see God, but a place where God is being worshipped. And that's a difference between him declaring, I want to see a live God, El Chai, in contrast to the idols. And then he says, Matai Yavo, when am I going to come to a place where God is going to be worshipped, in the place that people are coming? So perhaps who wrote it is in a far distance place where Beit HaMikdash is, and he yearns, yes, God, but also the place that the people are worshiping God.
You're absolutely correct. In the 2 verses we're going to see is expressed exactly. You're right. So it's double.
Double.
Yes. The point is, the place where he can find the presence of God, for which he thirsts, is a place he wants to get to. Now, if you believe that the presence of God is found in the temple, right, in Jerusalem, then that could be what he's talking about. And that is something that the commentators on this, they dwell on that point. That is correct. Yes, absolutely.
Do we know anything about the dating of this?
It's hard to know. I mean, the fact is, it would appear, just guessing, that this is somebody who was a Levi, but who geographically somehow is distant, became distant from God. You're going to see in a minute more about that, okay? Now, does that mean that this is a Levite living, let's say, in Babel, whose turn to return to Jerusalem hasn't come up yet, right? Because a lot of the priests and Levium, there were groups of them came back with Shivat Zion, with the return to Zion, once the Persians allowed them, because they needed them, because it was a temple, it was supposed to be a temple-based city. So the priests and Levites are very important. And this is a guy who maybe was low on the list, and his turn hadn't come yet, and he was still up there.
Well, and there was not really a role for him in Bavel.
What? Say again?
There would not really have been much of a role for him in Bavel.
No, that's the point. No, he didn't want to stay there.
Right.
He was there because they fled. Remember, they were taken. The people, keep in mind, when the Babylonians conquered, they left people in Eretz Yisrael, but certain groups, primarily the leadership groups, they took up with them in the understanding that if you take away the leadership, they won't be able to rebel, and they'd have no money, right? They would be a poor community with no leadership. Okay, if you're doing those things, that's what you do. All right, fine. So if you're up there, if that is indeed the case, then you are distant. And if you have a strong yearning, if you are a God-obsessed person, and your absence from being in the presence of God is really been bothering you, and you can't wait to get down and back to Jerusalem, where you could perhaps really, where you again would gain that presence or access to that presence, you're really feeling anguish. Okay, we don't know a great deal. We know practically nothing about the condition of the Jews in Babel during this period. We don't know much. There's not much about it. Okay, The story of Purim you can forget about because that may not even be historic. Let's set that aside for a moment. If it happened, it was a very rare occasion. Because generally, the fact is, throughout their rule, the Persians were pretty benign toward the Jews. In fact, they used Jews to keep the Egyptians in place. What happened, the Jewish community that lived in Egypt. I don't want to go there. Never mind. All right. They were priests. They were Levites. They had their own little temple. They had their own temple over there. Anyhow, it's the Elephantine community, who lived in Upper Egypt, meaning Southern Egypt. Okay. Anyhow, we don't know. Now, some of Ezekiel, for example, in his prophecies, talks about issues relating to the Jewish community in Babel a little bit, but it's not clear. And clearly, Yechezkel seems to have pretty much a free hand in how he deals with this community in which he lives, because he's doing all kinds of wild, crazy things. And apparently he doesn't seem to feel as if somebody's threatening him. But his whole point is to keep the hitlahavut, right? The strong emotional and spiritual commitment of these people tied up with with God, even though there is no temple. Now, later on, 2nd Isaiah will already talk about going back and hint at the rebuilding of the temple after Cyrus. That's the 6th century. Okay. So, it's possible it's in that setting. Okay. It makes sense. This could have been a Levite. And nobody talks about this, but remember Jeremiah, who was a Kohen. Yirmiyahu was a Kohen. He probably did not officiate. Yechezkel, by the way, was a Kohen also. But Yirmiyahu did not officiate in the temple. But remember what happened to him. Where did he go after the destruction?
Egypt, didn't he?
Egypt, right. He went to Egypt. And there was a community down there. Some of his latter chapters deal with the community down there. And they actually built a temple down there eventually. It wasn't kosher. But they built a temple in the subsequent generations. But the point is that you got the sense that there were these real frum Kohanim and Leviim who yearned to be back in direct contact with God. And he wasn't. Okay. Now there's some other comments here that we can look at that might suggest that within the community itself, there may have been tensions that this guy may have been suffering. We will see. Okay, so hold on to that. Tybal, was that your hand?
I put it in the chat. Was the temple you're referring to the Elephantine one, or was Elephantine later?
No, the Elephantine's later also. Elephantine we know about from the 5th century BCE. And we don't know how old it was at the time. Those were probably Jews who went with Jeremiah and were brought south by the Persians to keep a lid. They were military, they were soldiers, but there was a temple there, which means there were probably some kind of priests. And it's possible that he could have been one of those, but I don't know, because they knew where the real place was. So, there's a lot of guesswork in what I'm suggesting, because we just don't know enough. But clearly, what Verad said, what the commentators say is correct. This guy is geographically away from the temple. One thing we may suggest is that this must have been after the Deuteronomic reform. Remember, in the 620 or thereabouts, King Josiah closes down all the local shrines, saying the only place where you can find God's presence is Jerusalem in the temple. Okay, so if this was in Eretz Israel at some point, and unless we don't know, but clearly this person feels geographically where they are, they don't have access to the presence of God. And he couldn't build a little shrine of his own. Okay? All right. So, now the next line, though. So, Pnei Elohim, we can really say is God's presence. Doesn't necessarily mean that you could see God's face per se. But, however, it presented itself. Okay. But then now look at verse 4. This is the interesting contrast. Haitali dimati lechem yomam v'layla. My tears were my food, my sustenance, night and day. Be'emor elai kol hayom ayeh Elohecha. By the fact I was being told, I was being said to me all the time, where is your God?
That takes me back to Bavel again with them when they first come to Bavel and the Al Naharot Bavel and the sing to us a psalm to the tauntingness of it.
Yes, that notion, exactly. But this could have been from within the community too.
Uh-huh.
We don't know if this was said by a Babylonian pagan or by a heretic, who was, like, excuse the comparison. I see your hand, Tybal. Somebody who went through the Holocaust and ends up doesn't believe in God, right? They're alive. They're not living in Europe. They're living in the United States, but they don't believe in God. And they may make fun of people who believe in God. Says, ha! And they're now doing this to him because they believed in God, and here they are in the exile. So we don't know. Or, as I said before, it could be non-Israelites who are taunting them. Or, there's one other option, his own soul. This could be within. This could be within. And this could be actually a spiritual struggle that is self-induced. And it's tearing him up. Okay, this is going to pop up later. At some point, it's going to sound like there are other people. But it's possible that he's using the other motifs to really talk about this struggle within him. And that's why I said this is the problem. His obsession with God is his problem. That he just cannot make sense of why this God whom he adores is not reciprocating with love. And we'll see later on that there's a wonderful contrast that he makes between his response and God's response. And that's what sort of validates this suggestion that this is all within himself. Very, very, could be, if this is correct, it could be, understandable. Definitely understandable. Okay. Now, but again, interesting. His tears, water, right? So he says, I'm like a deer who is thirsting for God. And now what he's saying is it's as if he's saying, what's the water that I have? My tears. That's all I got. And later on, there'll be a third reference to water, and you see that one. It's just completely different. So it's something to consider. Again, I happen to think that these people are real artists, and this is not accidental. They pick up themes and they use them, they massage them, they express them different ways, the way an artist will use color in the painting. And I really believe it's the case. Are these people inspired by God? Maybe that's what this is all about. I don't know. That's a matter of faith. It's interesting that God is inspiring this poor guy to feel torn, to feel torn. But I don't know. Maybe he's testing him. All right. Now, here is a line that you'd be familiar with. Where do you know that from?
Martyrology.
Martyrology on Yom Kippur. Bingo. That's it. That's where it's from, right? So these are the things that I remember. Now, who's remembering? Keep that in mind. He is remembering. And these memories are pouring out upon my soul, actually. My soul is pouring out upon me. Eshbecha alai. I'm pouring out my soul. I'm pouring out my soul. Okay, so that's what one makes one think that the tormenting is from within. Okay, and now what is he remembering? This is what's causing him horrible anguish. The following: Ki evor basach ededem ad beit Elohim b'kol rina. The translation I like the best is Benji Siegel's, which is not that different from JPS. He says, the celebrant throng, being part of the celebrant throng to the house of God with the sound of joy and thanksgiving. He's part of this crowd. Sach is the word sach, you see it? That's a hapax. That's the only time. This is one of those rare words. This is the only time it's found in the Bible. And it means a crowd. That's what they assume. Okay? And now here, Ededem means, it's another strange word. It means walking or toddling, but the point is, it's not like rushing, but you have a crowd that, slowly is moving to the temple of God. He remembers what that was like, right? Doing so, b'kol rina, with a voice of song, singing, happy, joyous, right? And now...
Is word sach different than like where you have in Megillat Esther, where we have like sarei hasach, or...
Saf, that's samach fei, isn't it?
I didn't think so, but maybe I'm wrong.
I thought it was Shomrei Hasaf.
Okay.
Yeah, check it. Vera's shaking her head. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Right. That makes sense. I understand you're confused because a final chaf and a final fei look very much alike. Yes. So if you saw it, that could have been registered. I understand. I look at letters sometimes and I get confused myself. Okay. So this is what's just the memory of those joyous opportunities to come into the presence of God is driving him crazy, right? It's just demolishing his soul by this memory. Okay, all right. Remember though, he's remembering. He's the one who is right. Now this line, which is going to appear 3 times, and that's what this line is. One of the reasons why the Psalm 42 and 43 are considered one psalm, because you'll find it like after the first part of there's a part 1, a part 2, and the Psalm 43 is a part 3. And what's interesting, this has been noted, that one is more associated, excuse me, with the temple, the yearning for God. The second one deals more with the enemy who's causing him suffering. And the third one is a combination of the two. In fact, Rabbi Siegel suggests that it has one of my favorite words, a chiasm. A-B-B-A. A is temple, B is enemy. So that's part 1 and part 2. Then part 3, the first part of it is B again, the enemy, and the last part is A again, the temple. So it's temple, enemy, enemy, temple. Structure, artistry, thoughtfulness. Again, indicating the fact that it's one piece. And we've seen this before in a number of the Psalms that we looked at, right? Where you have different structures. Remember, we had Psalms with 3 different parts, right? And the first part is this, the second part is the third part is that. One of them, one of them had one kind of structure, and the last one was also a chiasm. So, I mean, these concepts, these structural elements are used as part of the artistry of the poem, but they also affect the meaning of the poem. Right, the fact that the third part repeats the first two parts is just affirming the validity of both, which is number 1, I'm dying here, right? Bible, that's for you. Not that you're dying, God forbid, but it sounds like you. All right, it's Jersey, whatever. You're not from Jersey, whatever. Anyhow, but and then the third one, so it repeats them both. Emphasizing, thank you. I got a good one. Oh, thank you so much. Yes. All right, moving on. How are we? We're good. Now, this next one, though, is really, you want to talk about location. That's what this is all about. Okay? So, no, we didn't read 6. Sorry. Verse 6. Ma tishtochachi nafshi v'tehemi alai. Hochili l'Elohim, ki od odenu yeshuot panav. Okay, so ma tishtochachi. By the way, where do you find ma tishtochachi u'ma tehemi?
There's a song in an Israeli dance called Tzion Tamati. I was just thinking of this.
This is l'chadodi. Ma tishtochachi u'ma tehemi.
Yeah, okay. Right. It's also in a song.
Oh, another song too. Okay, very good. So whether it came from here or Lechadodi, we don't know. That's okay. All right. So what does Ma Tishtochachi mean? Ma Tishtochachi nafshi. Okay. What's Tishtochachi? Yes, Baron.
Gotta be the downcast. Gotta be the downcast.
There is a verb in Hebrew which the root is shin chet chet, and that soresh is when you go bend down, when you go low.
You go low.
That's the
right. And
okay.
the thing is that it could be shin chet hey or shin chet chet. A lot of verbs are like that, right?
Because I think it's shin chet chet because the passive form is shachuach, like you go bend down. So, but
on the other hand, I will tell you that the Kerler-Berber suggests shin chet hey, but shin chet chet is a variant. No, they both are right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you. Yeah, just that there's
no arguing, Rabbi.
Huh?
Just the learning from one another.
That's right. Exactly. Yes. Anyway, so why does my soul get so low? Right? He's talking to his soul. Why are you low? Why are you depressed? Why are you depressed? Right? And he says, "V'tehemi alai," and you are being stirred up within me. Hey, mem, hey is the root. You're stirred up. You're that's the best word. By the way, there's no connection between that and the word tahom, depth. Oh. Depth is that was the word I was mentioning before, a primal noun. That has nothing to do with the root hey mem hey. Nothing. It's a different word altogether. Anyway, so his soul is you can understand. I mean, he has no peace of mind. He's constantly obsessed by this pain, this emotional, spiritual pain that he has. So he's saying, look, hold on, control this. Hochili lelohim. Okay? Hochili, have hope in God. Ki odo denu yeshuot panav. Right? For I will yet praise him for the salvation of his presence. Okay? I will have an opportunity of praising him for the salvation of his presence. In other words, I will be there. I will feel saved. I have experienced salvation. Now, could that mean, therefore, that means that he has been freed from the other distancing that has caused him all this pain? So the salvation is the fact that he's able to come close to God. That's what he wants. That's what he needs. Then he will no longer feel in exile. I mean, that's part of what you got to consider here. He is exiled from God's presence, and that's causing his pain. So the salvation would be his return to the presence of God. So I would suggest that is the Yeshua that he's talking. It's not messianic. It's not Mashiach redemption. This is personal. This whole thing is personal. Okay? All right. Now, here is the next very interesting line. Again, so now he's asking the question. Elohai alai nafshi tishtochach. That's where you saw the double chet. Yes. So he's saying, my God, my soul is spilling out all over me, and it's making me low. It's lowering. All right. This is why I'm in this depressed state. Al kain eskorcha. Therefore, what's my response? I'm going to remember you, right? I'm going to remember you. Now, here's the thing. What is this next thing talking about? Me'eretz Yarden, v'chermonim, mehar mitzar. Okay? All right. What's Eretz Yarden?
Israel.
Is that the kingdom of Jordan?
But isn't it the boundaries?
Well, I mean, it's Jordan River, obviously.
Well, Jordan on the east, Mount Hermon in the north, and I would assume Hil Nazar would be in the south.
Well, we don't know what Har Mitzar is. It could be. That's very interesting, because I'll tell you why. The reason why yes, that's right. I mean, that those are you're right. They could be referring to boundaries. Yes. And Mitzar, we know, for example, remember last semester we talked about, this was in the Bible class, the discovery of this area in this very, very southern Negev, where they found proof of sort of a paganized worship of God. It's a big archaeological site, and I think it may have been some kind of a prayer house, not a temple, but God's name is written all over there with reference to God's consort, a wife. It's a dualistic expression of God. Okay, but this is in an area and it's the area it's called in Arabic is refers to a mountain, and it's at the southern border. There's small mountains down there in the middle of the desert. So Tybal, you could have hit a home run on this one, okay? But the point is, so what he's saying is then what? I remember you, from the fullness of our country, when it was all whole and these boundaries were meaningful, okay? Yep, that makes perfectly good sense. But now here's the thing. The name Yarden, what other word do you see there in Hebrew? Yarad.
Yarad, yeah.
All right, what does that mean?
To go down.
Went down, went low, right? All right, what's the next one? Cheremon. What word do you see there? Cherem. Cherem. What's a cherem?
Edge, a border.
A separation,
a walling off.
Huh?
Separation.
Walling off.
Oh, yes, waddling off, separating distance, right? Somebody's in cherem, can't go near him, right? The money that the gold that they took out of Jericho that they looted, remember? That was cherem, untouchable, can't go near it, okay? And then the last one, what's mitzar mean? Sadi ayin resh, sa'ir, sa'ar, again, low, katan, small, right? So scholars suggest that this may be a play on words. It not only refers to the boundaries of the country, but it's also sort of expressing the fact that, isn't that funny that our boundaries talk to me, to how I am right now. I am laid low. I am removed out of contact. I'm in cherem. And it's interesting, the way that, I don't know exactly how this played out in the Bible, but the fact is that when you went into cherem in rabbinic times, you were cut off even from people, from business opportunities, from all community. It was horrible. In the Middle Ages, it was one of the worst things you could happen. So it's just interesting that he should choose these boundary markers that reflect his own situation. Yeah, Noah.
Would I be too off saying that it's like a very distant analogy or metaphor from Moses, who saw Israel from Jordan and from the boundaries? And he was not allowed. That word.
So he's like Moshe.
He's like Moshe. I don't know if he's like, but there's this experience, right, of being at the border and not being in there.
Oh my.
So I don't know. Because of the word Jordan, it came up for me.
Well, Yarden would be the river, but I mean, the fact is it was a boundary marker. There's no question. It's in certain areas it was. Absolutely. Yes, but that's very interesting. So he sort of sees himself in the same situation. It's there, but I can't go in. That's how I feel. Painful. Could be.
Rabbi?
Yes, Tybal.
To build on Noah, in Chronicles, Moshe is named Yered because he descended with tablets. It's one of the other names of Moshe and Tanakh, for Moshe and Tanakh.
Yered.
Yep. So it's not just in one of the 10 generations. The name is in the 10 generations of Bereshit, but then at the very end, it's another name for Moshe who brought down the tablets because he couldn't stay up there forever.
Wow. Well, Noah, you got somebody in your corner there supporting you.
It's just an association, because that story of Moses not being allowed to come in, right?
No,
it's just a really strong kind of story that we have embodied in our collective consciousness. So that's what popped up.
Great. No, I didn't know about Divrei Yamim. There it is, Yered. I mean, it's blatant. So, I mean, wow. Well, see, this is how this class is supposed to operate. Everybody's supposed to come up with ideas, and somehow they all fit in. This is great. Oh, boy. This is exciting. All right. Anyway, so again, I think this poet has proven himself to be a person who knows what he's writing about. And he's got an impact. He's trying to make an impact on the reader that gives full expression to the deep feelings that he has inside. And that's what's going on. All right, good. But now listen to this. So remember what sound up until now can you associate with God?
I don't know.
Say it again.
It's pretty silent.
Rabbi.
Silence.
Silence. The sound of silence, right? God hasn't said a word. The guy's asking, say something, do something. Nothing. But now look at this. Tahom el tahom korei lekol tzinorecha. One deep to another deep is calling out to the voice, to the sound of your tzinor. Okay? Now, a tzinor, let's take it a step back. Tahom el tahom, right? Now, there is a sound associating this word with the word that appears 3 times, which is tehemi. Remember, I said that is not a verb that's a word that's grammatically associated with tahom, but sound-wise it is. So you had up above tahom, tehemi, and later on you're going to have again tehemi, and at the end tehemi, and here's tahom, tahom. Word sounds, word plays. That's what these poets do. But here, though, it's a different thing. Here he's saying the depths of these waters are making noise and responding to the noise that comes out of your tzinor. All right, here they call it a cataract, which is a kind of a waterfall. But tzinor has another meaning, and I think I prefer the other one, which is like a pipe, a hole. I'm thinking of Rosh HaNikra. Have you been up there at the top of the border near Lebanon at Rosh HaNikra, where they have these gapes, almost like caves, and water, and the water rushes out, these sounds, weird, powerful sounds, okay? That's what I think this is talking about. It's not waterfall. It's a hole through which water is being rushed, and it's thunderous, okay? And it's today it's as a pipe, right? Like, a pipe of water, a water pipe, okay? But I think that's what, one way or the other, the point is, and what else? Kol mishbarecha begalecha alai avaro. Your breakers and wave have passed over me. So this is not an oxymoron, but it's just a reversal of things. God is making noise in the world, right? The depths. Remember, tahom is used for what purpose in the Torah? Who's in tahom? Where is it used?
Creation.
Huh?
Creation.
Well, it was part of the nature of existence when the world was created, right?
And also Jonah.
Right.
Tahom
is the deep. It's a term for deep water. And it is associated in paganism with Tiamat, the goddess of the deep, who fights Baal, okay? It's a pagan goddess. So it's a pagan term, but it's talking about this scary, powerful, deep water with which horrible sounds can be associated. I mean, how you might see them, I don't know, but clearly it's power, and it's responding to the huge sound that comes through your tzinor, through your cataract, or your cave, or whatever. Okay.
Is the cataract in an eye a different word?
No, I saw it spelled with A's. It's spelled with A's. Oh, with an I. You mean like an I in your?
For my patients that have cataracts, how do you say the word cataract?
Isn't it the same? I don't know. I thought it was the same. I've never
in Hebrew. How do you say it?
I've never seen the word with an I spelled the same way.
It is the same word.
I think so.
Like it is in English.
Yeah.
It always seems weird to me. I don't know why we call.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Obviously, it has multiple meanings.
Yeah.
I didn't check it up in an English dictionary, so I
have to look it up.
I did not do the etymology. Yeah. All right. Anyway,
you're not an ophthalmologist.
I like the concept of cave here, water rushing through a hole in the ground, because it really pushes it and it just explodes coming out. Anyway, so now look what he's saying. I'm looking here. I want to hear you, and all I hear is the sound of this water, these giant waves that are just splashing over me. In other words, I hear the force of these natural sounds that express the power that you have, but what's it doing? It's flowing over me, right? It's swept. It's not getting into my neshama. It's over me the same way my soul is exploding over me. Though what's the same root? Alai, right? It's passing over me. But that's not what I want. I want that quiet sound that you are. I want the sound that Elijah heard when he was on Mount Sinai. I want to hear the kol demamadaka. I don't think he's referring to that at all. But that's what he wants to hear, that kind of mysterious expression of God's voice that we can hear spiritually. But instead we hear this noise from the outside, from nature. You're basically saying you're talking to nature, but you're not talking to me. Guy's really angry, you know.
He wants a more personal experience.
Exactly. He's lacking any experience. Yes.
I was thinking of the Kol Demama, actually, thinking that the waters are rushing over him, but that he's not hearing anything, right, and that he has to really find it within himself.
Yeah, but that's a struggle.
Sure.
He can't, because God's not helping him. I think yes, you're right. Absolutely. But he needs, but the point is, he's looking to find the presence of God, which is outside of him. He needs that in order to bring it inside. Once it's inside, then it can talk to him and he can hear it. But right now, these things are all keeping it out. And it's almost like he's saying that rushing noise of all that water, which is the antithesis of really remember, this is the guy who was dry, right? All he had was tears, and he was like a deer finding no water in the wadi, right? So there's no water. Now you bring me water. This is not the kind of water I need. It's not what I'm talking about. This is the antithesis. It's so noisy I can't hear you. By the way, that whole thing with Mount Sinai with Eliyahu is really it's an anti-Baal polemic, because what does God show in order to prove what he's not, where he cannot be found? There's wind, earthquake, and lightning, right? And so when you're at Mount Sinai, right, that's what was there. But he said in each one of those, God wasn't in it. Then what did he hear? The kol demama, then he covered his face. That was God. So because Baal was represented by all those sounds and powers, the earlier generation, that's and why that whole story is probably considerably later than the earlier accounts of Sinai. I mean, Sinai, if you will, that was he's in the Colosseum, right? He's got to have a big sound system because he's got 603,550 males and all of their wives and children, maybe 2-3 million people out there. So the kol demama could use, so they had to use the loudspeaker system. But the true essence is only found in the kol demama daka, and this is preventing there's no evidence, there's no hint of that here. But I think what this is saying is that noise, the sounds of God's voice as expressed in nature are not making it help, or not helping him at all. Okay, moving on. Where are we? 5 more minutes. Okay. All right. So now, just a second. Turn it off. Hold on. Now, this is just stopped. Okay, it's stopped. And again, he's trying to figure out a way that he can find God. So he says, Yomam yitzaveh Adonai chasto, uvelayla shira imi, tefila le'el chayai. Okay? By day, God will command that his chesed be present. And by night, there will be song with me. Tefila le'el chayai, a prayer to the God of my life. All right? It's almost as if he's saying, then I see the struggle. This is what I yearn for. This is what I would expect, that in the day, God will command Yud Hey Vav. Here he used Yud Hey Vav. Why? Why doesn't he say Elohim? Elohim in the Bible is used with Chesed also. But why would he use Yud Hey Vav Hey?
Well, this is a more personal name.
It's God's personal name. So we're getting personal. Right. What else?
Is it because that's the name only the Kohen Gadol would say? So in a way, it's standing in for the structure of Judaism, and then how it could help him find comfort.
I think you're close. Think of this: Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim, and then.
Well, there are different names that have different traits of God represented.
Right, but Adonai is notzer chesed la'alafim.
Closer to the source.
I see your hand, Rena, just a second.
It's closer to the source.
So God, chesed, loving kindness, is part of God's essential being. As God had told Moses, Exodus chapter 34, right? Exodus chapter 34. So God's chesed is the true expression of the nature. He's turning to that. Now, I see, Rena, hold on. I saw your hand. I'll get to you in a second. Marion, I see your hand. Let me just finish this thought. The point is, all the other expressions of God where Elohim is used is more on the side of power. And he talks about, a soul yearning for that. But this is specifically saying, I want you to find your chesed and rachamim. I need that side of you. Maybe what he's saying is, I've been talking to Elohim side of you. I got to turn to the other side of you. Maybe that'll work. Give me chesed. Command chesed. You're powerful in chesed. Let me have that. Okay? And then sing with me at night. And I will say my prayers to El Chayai. This is not El Chai now. This is not the ever-living God, the living God. This is the God of my life. Talk about personal. This is me, my life, that is wrapped up with this God. And only through your finding of your compassion, it seems, will I be able to get in touch with you. It's amazing. Okay. First Rena, then Marion. Rena.
I think you sort of answered my question. I was sort of wondering if this verse isn't maybe the only verse in this psalm where the author is kind of getting what he needs from God, or is he still yearning for something and he's just trying something different?
It's plural, yitzaveh.
Okay.
It's basically saying, let this happen.
Okay.
May God command his chesed to come into play. Okay. All right. Marion.
Feels like it's closer to the source, to the essence, to the, Yud Vav He is the unpronounceable. It's the expansiveness. It's the openness. It's the oneness. It feels like it's more toward the oneness, with the loving kindness, the whole, anyway, using Yud Vav He is kind of for me, it feels closer to God than other.
Yes, it's God's personal name.
But
right?
it's the expression of oneness, the closeness. Like you can't get any closer than being one with.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I'm going with that.
Well, right, yeah, but I think keep in mind again, go back to Exodus 34. That is the primal expression where God tells Moses what God's about. Right? And the overwhelming part of that is Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, compassionate, gracious, Notzer Chesed, he stirs up, loving kindness.
Right. I was thinking of the tree of life too, thinking of the Zohar, that opens up, it's a bigger.
Yeah, well, it is.
That's what I'm looking at is the Zohar. But I understand what you're saying too, but I also feel like the Zohar is like in this.
Yeah.
With that openness.
Well, it is, again, coming out of the traditional view of that line. It is, in the sense, this is the primal essence of God, the primal essence of God. And by the way, some of you, if you're in the class about the book, I'll give you a little Vorspice, okay? I mean, all right, so tomorrow, if you're in the book class tomorrow, and I say this, don't say anything, because, I'll pretend it's the first time you've heard it, and say, oh my God, come on, make a big deal about it. Well, 1 second, you don't know what I'm going to say. Hold on, Noah, just a second. My point is, in the beginning of chapter 2 of Breshit, God's name changes. It changes from Elohim to Adonai Elohim. Okay, and there's a midrash that explains it, and Rashi gives a twist on that. Rashi ends by saying that it's a mixture of Adonai and Elohim. That's what was needed. And again, Adonai is God's quality of what? Compassion. Elohim is God's quality of justice, right? So you needed both. But Rashi points out what comes first, Adonai, because that's the primal quality of God.
Which is Chesed and Gevurah. That's why I say that's why I bring in the tree.
That's right. Bingo, yes. And I said before, that word is mentioned also in Exodus chapter 34, where it's associated with compassion. So chesed and rachamim become, in biblical and rabbinic tradition, a dyad, those two concepts. You have it in Birkat HaMazon, chen v'chesed v'rachamim v'revach hatzala v'yaslacha, da. Right?
And compassion can be tiferet. So you've got the triangle.
They all go together.
Right.
And that's the divineness. So that's what I'm thinking is going on here. He's already picked up on that notion, which is an indication, perhaps, that specific understanding that you find in Exodus has become a more powerfully used, a more frequently used concept to understand what God's primary element is, which is the softer side, not the harder side. Okay, Noah.
I just wonder, in the context of the poem or the song, is he shifting to use God's other name? So I'm wondering if saying, pay attention now, I've changed the name because here's what I need, or here's my problem, which is what's at the end, shchachteni, or oppressed by my enemy, whatever it is. This is why I need you. Yeah. So it's like a crescendo of name change and declaration of the problem to get our attention from the general lament that we've heard so far.
Right. This would not be, it's a crescendo. It's not the end, though, because we got the whole second part to follow, right? This is verse 9.
Oh, I see.
We got 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I see.
But it could be
okay, so erase what I said. I thought it was a different tone of saying, like, hey, God, this is what I need. This is what's happening to me.
Wait. Stop. As they say Don't Mess with the Zohan. No. Lo. You're right. It's a crescendo, not necessarily at the end, though. I think it is. And what you said a moment ago is correct. He falls back on the rest of the stuff because it didn't work. He was now he said, I've been doing Elohim all along. All right, I'm going to try Yud Hey Vav Hey. But he lapses back into Elohim, which is part of his dilemma. Nothing seems to work. Okay? Poor guy. And this is why I say he's obsessed. Maybe you could say he's addicted. He's addicted to God. And he's not getting his stuff. He's suffering. Yeah, sad. All right, next time we will finish this. Okay? But look ahead. The next time we're going to, you ain't seen nothing yet. The next poem we're going to read, next psalm, is a shorter one, so we can finish that and this next week. Psalm 44. You read Psalm 44, and it's going to knock the socks off. You're going to ask yourself, what the heck is this doing in the Bible? Okay? That's next week. Same time, same station, 7:30, right here. Those of you in class tomorrow, 12 noon, and another, you got the other login information. Okay? Tyvel.
Did you really say, don't mess with the Zohan?
Say again.
Did you? We, in our family, we love that movie.
I do too. I've seen it times.
Yeah, we too.
All right.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So we'll see you next week or see you tomorrow. Be well, stay healthy, and hopefully my voice will be better. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.